this is the end of part one of Dr. Tony Jaya and Jahron Mohammed coming from Sudan, from Khartoum, discussing Africa and the African diaspora. So
you need to welcome to Box.
Okay. Tell me when.
No.
Welcome to part two, Dr. Tony, Ambassador Dr. Tony Yaya East and Horn of Africa Ambassador. We're discussing Sudan, we're discussing Africa, we're discussing Africans in the diaspora, we're discussing what Sudan and its relationship to Africa, its relationship to the global diaspora, what that all means, and his perceptions on all of that, and his historical involvement, which has been great. So we're going to continue in this discussion. We talked about Sudan, we talked about Sudan, North and South, and I want to include all of Africa and what that relationship means, you know, using kind of Sudan as a kind of catalyst and its relationship with the rest of Africa, and what your thoughts are in terms of how we can expand those relationships to include of all of Africa. We talked about unity, we talked about Africans with a vision, people like Nkrumah, Lumumba, and others who have vision. You mentioned Minister Farrakhan and his influence and him speaking from the heart and the importance of that. So I want to include all of that in this discussion, but focusing on the continent itself, and then we'll discuss going abroad and bringing the whole African diaspora into the conversation.
Yeah, let me just continue where I stopped, and because I was talking about the merging of business between Sudan and South Sudan and the obstacle that happened before. And as I said, there's a war that happened in 2012 after the independence, and they closed the borders, and as you have seen, it has taken long until 2022, where now the current government went, the prime minister with the delegation. So to revive, it is to revive what has happened before. So it's not something new that people are going to start, and this is what even this morning I was in conversation about the delayment that has happened before should happen again, because I was part of that. And as I said, in 2014, I was here as representing South Sudan business community, and we have signed with the business community of Sudan and the international organization, United Nations Global Compact Business for Peace. And the representative was the founder of the United Nations Global Compact, Sir Modi Stud. And these are the people that who really are championing the Global Compact all over the world. And I have seen that this time, I think there is a progress, and the action that is going to be taken is now they're supposed to open the borders in October the 1st. Now they have pushed to October the 15th. This is the previous, the latest news that I just got this afternoon. And I had the conversation with our Undersecretary of the Commerce in South Sudan, and then this is what I got from his side. And I was part of it, involved in this. And then I used to encourage Sudan and South Sudan how to merge business, how to engage in business together, because this is how you can develop the relationship, because the relationship is not about politics. And the diplomats cannot come when there is no interest there, because my interest is your interest. And I have seen the international community and the Western world, they look for their interests. It's not about the diplomatic side, it's not about the politics side. They look about what they can get from the other side. And this is what, that's what I've been telling people and encouraging people, that the business between Sudan and South Sudan is going to really to make a relationship strong.
So let's kind of move on because we have limited time. You know, the other issue that you and I off camera had discussed, and we did this over the phone and then the text that we sent back and forth. We talked about Ethiopia and Abiy Ahmed, Prime Minister of Ethiopia, and the issues that he's confronting right now with Tigray and with the TPLF, and the conflict he's having with the U.S., and what that actually represents. In a brief, very brief conversation, because we want to talk more about Africa, the whole continent, and then we want to jump abroad and discuss U.S. and what your thoughts are in terms of uniting with Africans in the diaspora. So we're going to start with Tigray, we're going to start with Ethiopia, we're going to start with Abiy, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and then move on throughout the continent.
You know, let me just say about the Tigray group, TLF group. They are the one who have the current government now.
Right.
They're the one who fought Mengistu. They are the one who overthrew Mengistu in '91. They are the one who put in power Meles Zenawi, the late Meles Zenawi, the prime minister. And again, I was in the summit last year, in UN summit, and before the opening of session, we had a breakfast in the morning, and Abiy Ahmed was addressing us, and he mentioned something about we have been giving flowers, 10,000 flowers of peace, but we are seeing some group inside the country receiving weapons from the humble people, and he is even mentioned about 60,000 has been transported to the country. So he was aware that there was war going to come.
Right.
And then again, the theme of the African Union in 2020, it was about silent guns in Africa. So as the country that is hosting the continent as an African Union organization, so you should avoid to go into conflict. You should avoid to go to conflict. You should avoid to encourage the conflict to continue, because it's not about the way you have to be a dictator, but you have to give everybody, these people, the reason why they fought, because they have seen this Abiy Ahmed has betrayed them. He has not given them the right, and they refused to the election that is going to, they have done their own election, because Tigray region is like a country. Like the Amharic region is like a country. And now it's not only Tigray that who has rebelled against the Abiy Ahmed. There is Oromo themselves movement. There is a young people from Gambela, they are from the Nuer tribe. You have seen Nuer. We have Nuer in South Sudan. There is a Nuer group and a Nuer group they are Ethiopian in Gambela. They have rebelled against the movement. And this is supposed as a Peace Nobel Prize winner. You should work to focus on the peace process. You should build the peace, not to create. The conflict between him and Trump and the administration of Trump, because Trump was so harsh to the African leaders, not only for Abiy Ahmed, but the conversation between them and the reply back of the message that America has sent to Ethiopia, what Abiy Ahmed said, he said, nobody has colonized us before. Nobody has been a master to us. Nobody has had power on us. So you, American, and whatever you have, because you know America, they have put themselves as like a police for the whole world. So you cannot just say anything against them. You cannot say anything in their faces. They will tear you down. They will bring you down. This is what has happened everywhere. So the history of America is well known everywhere. You have seen it in Libya. You have seen it in Syria. You have seen it in Afghanistan. You have seen it in Iraq. You have seen it everywhere. So we have really to be careful. Abiy Ahmed said something he should even implement. And this is the problem that we have in Africa. When we talk about 2020, this is the Agenda 2020, that is a silence of guns. Now there is more guns in Africa. There is more war in Africa. There is more fight in Africa. There is more refugees in Africa. In South Sudan, there is refugees. In Sudan, there is refugees. In Eritrea, there is refugees. You have in Tigray group. These are the crises that we are now facing in the Horn of Africa here. And this is what we have to tell people. People has to come to dialogue. Abiy Ahmed refused even the initiative from the African Union. He refused the initiative from African Union. He refused the initiative from the Prime Minister of Sudan because he is the head of the IGAD to mediate them between the Tigray, and because there is a conflict in the border, and that is why he's seeing that this one day he cannot accept the Sudan initiative. He cannot accept the South Sudan initiative. Recently, President Salva was in Ethiopia. He rejected the initiative. He rejected the initiative of the African Union group.
Now, maybe I'm correcting you, I'm not sure, but in today's newspaper, the South Sudan, or the head of IGAD, which is the Prime Minister of Sudan, suggested the president of Salva Kiir of South Sudan represent the negotiations between Tigray and Ethiopia. And from what I read today, Abiy Ahmed accepted for those negotiations to go on. Where they will head to, I'm not 100% sure, but those negotiations are, as I read today, are actually taking place. There's a lot of disagreement across the board in terms of the direction of Abiy Ahmed. There's a lot of opposition. There's a lot of Western press saying negative things about Abiy Ahmed, that they gave him the Peace Prize and they should take it back, because they're saying a lot of negative things about his relationship with Tigray. But the U.S. had been in bed with Tigray for years, and the unification of Ethiopia is not encouraged, it seems like to me, and the various tribes, ethnic groups, I mean, Ethiopians should be considered Ethiopians and not these various tribes or ethnic groups. And the U.S. is not encouraging that based on reports coming out of the U.S. But I want to move on because we have a lot to cover and we have less than 10 minutes. So if you could talk about Africa and your relationship with the whole continent, and then we jump abroad and go into the U.S.
Yeah, I think that if we want to talk, it need another big session to talk about the Tigray issues, the Abiy Ahmed issues. We will be here all days. But let us just touch bases about what is happening in the continent and what the African, the Pan-African Forum is doing, Pan-African Movement is doing, the Pan-African Daily TV is doing that to mobilize the African to work together.
Dr. Tony, we covered Ethiopia, and we covered South and North Sudan. Time is of limit, so we want to go directly to the U.S. We wanted to cover all of Africa, but we'll do that in a subsequent interview sometime in the near future. But I want to talk, because I know you've traveled to the U.S., you've developed a relationship with the African diaspora. You've had much to say about African Americans and what they represent in terms of helping bridge the gaps between Africa, African diaspora, and what African Americans bring to the table. And Nkrumah talked about it. I mean, he was a student in the U.S. My alma mater, Lincoln University, which is in Pennsylvania, he was a student there. He was a student in the city where I grew up, University of Pennsylvania. So, what's your thoughts about Africa? You mentioned Minister Farrakhan, you mentioned Marcus Messiah Garvey. So what's your thoughts about African Americans, their contribution, and African Americans who are leaders and who have inspired not only Africans, but Africans throughout the diaspora? Your thoughts?
Yeah, let me just say this. There is now a closely connection with the continent now, the African diaspora in America, in the Caribbean, not only just in America, even in Caribbean and in South Pacific now, as the African community, wherever they are. In African Union, they have 6 regions. The 5 regions are in the continent, and the 6 regions is called ECO6, which is representing the African diaspora. And connecting the African diaspora back to the continent, and that is why in 2019 it was declared as a year of return. After 400 years of slavery, So now there's African American who want to be back to Africa, who want to come and test their DNA, who want to come and say that we are moving back to Africa because there is kind of a spirit that is connecting us back again to Africa.
A lot of African Americans have Canadian passports.
Yes, and we have seen people in Ghana, we have seen them in Sierra Leone, we have seen them, some of them in Kenya, some of them in Rwanda. They choose where to go.
Right.
And Africa is now opening because after declaring that the year of return is like opening back the African in diaspora to merge back to the African community in the continent. That's a very strong relationship now we are building in Pan-Africa Daily TV, in the Pan-African movement with all the Piolo Lumumba, Professor Piolo Lumumba, with Arikana, with others who are really echoing the voice of the African, like the Paul Kagame, like the president of Ghana, and welcoming the African diaspora back.
Right.
As ECO 6, they have the prime minister, they have the ministers that are representing them, they have the global chamber of commerce for diaspora, represented by the chairman of the global chamber of commerce called Dr. Malida Harris. She is originally from Panama, but the Caribbean origin, but is an American citizen. So I think there's a good connection, and I've seen Luis Farrakhan always talk about the African community to rise up,
right,
in America and linked to those in the continent. The same thing Marco Gabis 100 years ago, he was telling the African to be repatriated back to the Africa. I had a conversation with the current president of the Marco Gabis Foundation, and as you have seen, that was the same thing. There was Malcolm X and with King Luther, Martin Luther Kings, and they were all connected with the Kwame Nkrumah, with the Kenneth Kaunda,
right,
and these are all late now. So the spirit now is reviving back for the African community to connect together.
Now, what should we do? Give us some examples.
So the example of this is about the repatriation, because now there are people who are even registered. It's not for us, as I said last time in my interview last week, I said for us to rise and to be strong as an African, because we don't want to be a humanitarian state always. We don't want to be a humanitarian nation. We have to invade. We have to engineer our thing. You have to create, to invade our own thing, to have our own technology. This is how we can defeat. This is how we can rise. This is how we can stand and not to depend on others. Yes, we are a rich continent with all the resources we have, but still we are being categorized as the poorest people. And that needs a new mindset. We have to go to our old blueprints. As we have known ourselves, we are the origin of the mankind on the planet.
Right.
So we have to revive it. We have to come back to our sense. We have to follow our blueprint. We have to build what we have built before. This is how we can become strong. And we are encouraging the African diaspora in Caribbean and South Pacific, wherever they are in islands that have to merge. Yesterday, there was a summit. It's called Karukam Summit, where the Caribbean are connecting back to the African. And some African leaders like President Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya, President Paul Kagame. So what, as I said, that we have to go back to our blueprint as the African and the black community, the origin of the mankind and the whole planet.
Right.
So we have it, we can do it right. We can revive it, we can come back again to life. All the invading things that you have seen in the whole world was invaded by the African people.
Right.
If John S. Kennedy said that let us send a man in the moon, who sent the man in the moon? Who calculated the mathematics? It was the Catherine, a black woman.
Right.
They were the one behind the calculation of the mathematics that this Apollo 1 or Apollo 11 should go to the moon. We have done it and we will do it again.
Yeah, right.
We are now to go back to our blueprint. We have to build ourselves. We have to build our own economy. We have to build our own technology. We have to build our own policy, our own document. What they have been ruling us before, we don't want to obey that ruling. We are going to be a master on our own self, not masters, not others to be masters on us. We are free people, and we can do it, and we can change. Right. And this is my message to the African community, wherever they are worldwide in the continent. We are back again to our old blueprints, and we will do it, and we are going to shine.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Tony Yaya. Inspirational message. This is Jahron Muhammad, creator of Africa Watch, a weekly column that appears in the Final Call. Thanks again to my good friend Mohammed Saeed and his Brown Land newspaper and the great work that he's doing here in Sudan. We want to say that we plan on doing this again with Dr. Tony Yaya. There's much that we weren't able to cover, but this is a good start.